Good morning or evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for sticking with us. We're on the wrong side, so I'm a bit off kilter here at the minute. But welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, my name is Honey. I'm a car part reseller from Scotland. And with me is Sam, our clothing seller from Australia, who also happens to live right next to one of the most secretive places in the world. And it's taken her over 2 years to tell me that she lives next to the Area 51 of Australia.
Yeah, the Pine Gap, the secret US space base where everyone's a gardener. That's what they say that they do there, gardening.
Do people talk about it in the town?
Yeah, of course. There's so many US people here that they contribute. They're basically the backbone of our economy here.
And you guys just live in this major operation in the desert, and no one asks questions, and it's just
Not in the middle of town. It's out of town.
No, that's what I mean. But you live in the middle of nowhere, and next to you in the middle of nowhere is a giant operation doing
It's
what?
not areas.
I could just said that I watched 3 documentaries on Pine Gap when I figured out, and then I sent her an enraged message about how could she not tell me she lives next to the Area 51 of Australia. And she just the people in your town, most of them work there. That's what the town is for.
Well, it's not
Mostly.
for that, no. It was established long before the base was established.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so the town was established as part of the telegraph, the old telecommunication line that stretched up from South Australia to Darwin. It was way before the Great Wave.
Which is interesting because that's what they said that Pine Gap was for. Oh.
Yeah.
There you go then. I wasted a whole day on this. I'd like you to know. An entire day of my life I wasted on Pine Gap. There's no actual factual information out there. There's a lot of people who are hyping it up for YouTube content, which is probably what we're doing right now. But I was genuinely fascinated with this, and also offended that you know how much I love a conspiracy theory. You're just chilling next to a secret base and just didn't say nothing.
It's not a secret. Everyone here knows about it.
But I don't know about it.
There's protests there every Sunday at the minute.
What do they protest about?
At the moment, it's about.
You probably shouldn't say that.
No.
We might have to cut that. So if there's this awkward thing where we just restart. Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast.
Let's go on with the episode.
Anyway, talking about communications, obviously there's a lot of things in the world that can impact our eBay businesses. And we've had to kind of take it more into account, I would say, in the last 2 years than I've ever had to. I think in the UK, we did have something similar with Brexit, which affected sales when we left the EU, and then all that had to change. But we're all kind of facing the unknown treading waters of what's happening with imports and exports, specifically to America, which seems to be ever changing.
Sadly, that's just going to keep happening. So I believe that if the tariffs stay in place, we will start seeing reciprocal tariffs occurring. So the geopolitical landscape will keep changing. Because if you can get extra money for something coming into your country, then other people are going to do the same.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Why wouldn't they?
Right?
Why wouldn't they? Australia is kind of in a similar position as we are in the UK, where our economy alone is not necessarily enough to sustain ourselves because of the limited amount of people we have. And so we rely a lot on exports of our products. My business relies not as much on American buyers, just because our products are for right-hand drive cars and they have left-hand drive cars. So I send a lot more to Australia and Europe and things. But I know that a lot of categories do rely quite a bit on the American markets. especially given that things from the UK, we're an older country. Europe, we have a lot more history and heritage, and those things are quite popular. In America, where America is a newer country, so vintage and those type of things don't necessarily have the same age in America as it does in other countries. So I'm interested to find out, is America actually a big part of your business? Is that like a part that you feel like you have to protect, or where do you go from here?
So about a year ago, I turned off all international post. So when the EU brought in those requirements to add the manufacturer and contact person in
Yeah.
the country, and we don't have the global shipping program here. So I made the decision to turn off all international postage. And at the time, I remember discussing it with you,
Mm.
and you said, why don't you just keep the US on? And at that time, I just decided that it would be better to flatline, see what my business actually was outside of having international posts. And it turned out that it was about 10 to 15% of my sales did come from overseas buyers, which is quite a bit. So
Yeah.
to come off, it's been over a year now that I haven't had international posts on. I've been able to then rebuild that back. It took time though. So I don't envision ever turning international posts back on.
Are you not ever tempted to go, I can add an extra 15% on top of this if I just turn it back on? Like, what if the landscape um does settle again?
Yeah, I would like to. So it's just not worth it. So I believe that the only thing I can control is myself and how I respond to a
Yeah.
situation. And because of the changes globally with leaders, tariffs, trade wars, etc., and wars even, there's a lot that you then have to take your focus away from the everyday task by keeping up to date with like news reports, like angst over, can I still, like seller hub updates, can I still ship here, can I still ship to Ukraine, like so I, when I'm stressed, am not very clear and focused in my everyday tasks. So I made the decision that I needed to be able to control my response to the situation. And my response to the situation was being distracted. So the only way to stop being distracted was to turn it off, take away the angst, take away the anxiety, take away the distraction, and keep my eyes on the core business. And that's why I was able to grow back those sales and I was able to get through that period.
That makes sense. It
Mm,
does take a lot of um keeping up with and adjusting. I think especially if you don't have the global shipping program, where with
mm,
us, eBay decides where they're willing to post, how they're willing to post, how they're willing to. And even when the EU thing came in, they said we were told leave GSP on, and
mm.
if it doesn't have that information, your listing will just not show up there. And I was like, that's fine with me. No problem. I don't actually have to do anything. Right.
That's so nice.
Yes. Has our international sales decreased? Yes, it has. But if I have to look at the amount of effort I have to make to get those items to show up, it's not worth it for me. With a small percentage of sales that went there. And now with America, like GSP seems to be turning it on and turning it off. And it's very unclear, I think, to everyone what is happening, what the charges is, how the charges are being made. So, but for me, because I don't have to figure it out.
If I didn't have to figure it out, it'd be a different
Yeah.
conversation. But I also am not entirely clear on whether like eBay would collect the money from the buyer or if I'm then just paying it out of pocket. And if it's
Mhm.
manufactured somewhere and I have to pay just 50% randomly of the product out of my profits on the gross sale price too, not even on eBay's, like after the
Yeah.
fees have come out, then it's not worth it because eBay won't collect the money to then give to me to then be able to pay to the third party to be able to show proof of it being collected basically and paid. So I don't want to have that angst for the next 6 weeks up until when they appeal it through the court system.
I thought that it was at point of entry that the charges are made.
So
So
as
like
art,
with duties now, where it gets the custom and the buyer will get notified there's charges because they've imported something, or is it the person that's importing it?
so our shipping agency, Australia Post, is looking to collect it as you're creating the label. So they're going to use a third party called Xeon or something. and it looks like you have to pay them, so it comes out of your pocket before it leaves. So, and I'm assuming, and this is just me making assumptions, they want the money up front so that they don't ship it over there for it to then have to come all the way back and then cost them on a return to sender, is my guess.
That makes sense. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense in our situation though, because I'm not paying for someone else's package. Like that's your country. You pay your country's charges. I'm not. No.
I'm not. I think that's what Canada's doing as well. It's going to go through the same third-party company, Xeon, starts with a Z. And they'll be collecting the money, and you are like required to do that. So I don't even know if maybe you could send the link to the buyer and say like, hey, you need to pay this before I can ship it. Not sure.
And how would you know what to collect though? Because it seems to be ever changing, and you pay something now, it arrives there 2 weeks later, and it's a different charge.
This is why I don't want to have to navigate that. Like, also, what happens if the clothing tag has had the country of manufacturer cut off? So
Yeah.
what if people then just go around and say it's made in China, which is, I believe, 100% tariff charge. So it's 100% of the sale value. I don't know. I've really not kept a pulse on this very much. They, if you just cut it off, then you can't prove that it was made in China or not. So you could declare it was made somewhere else, which is a cheaper tariff. Like technically that's fraud, but like there's nothing stopping people from doing that.
Okay, so if you've let go of the international sales now, right, and you've gotten it to a point where you can claw back the sales,
Mhm.
what are I think a lot of people will feel they don't want to lose that portion of sales because they're not 100% confident or sure of how to get it back to local sales. But I think what people also don't understand is you make more money on a local sale because of, like we get charged regulatory fees, we get charged overseas fees, we get like extra fees we get charged for every sale that goes to GSP is quite substantial. I think it cost me over £300 a month.
Wow. What?
Yeah, and extra fees for you don't have that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We get so every time I sell something internationally, whether direct or through eBay, we get charged a international regulatory fee as well on top,
Nope.
which I mean, I guess eBay use to cover the sales conversion rate, the bank charges for, I don't know.
No, we get charged a 60% transaction fee, but none of that. I don't know what that is. I've
It's
never heard of that.
60%.
60 cent. So you
Yeah.
know how it's a 30-cent transaction fee on
Yeah.
domestic? Ours is 60 cents.
No. So
You
I'll
call
tell
P
you what we get
60p?
charged. Actually quite ridiculous. So we get charged international fees, which is extra. 0 point, oh, that's of my, which they say, why does that take me to fees for private sellers? I'm not a private seller, guys, I promise you. Oh, if you're a registered address in the UK, we charge an international fee of 3% if the delivery address for the item is outside the UK.
That's interesting. I don't know if we have that. I haven't, as I said, I haven't kept a pulse on this at all.
So that's an extra fee we get charged for those as well. So just take that into account as well when you're calculating that you pay an extra 3% in fees on international orders. And that includes GSP, even if they buy it through GSP. So what were some of the ways, I guess, that you kind of looked and analyzed how to claw that back
So
domestically?
I would just like to clarify, I just quickly checked. I think we have a 1% international transaction fee here. There you go. Didn't know that. It's been a long
Yeah.
time. So what I had to do was I had to tailor some of the products. So some of the things I would purchase I knew would go over to the US, so I couldn't pick up those anymore. So I had to really niche down and analyze what sold in Australia and offset picking up one category of stuff
No.
to increase picking up the stuff that I knew would sell in Australia. Otherwise, it's literally just waiting for your store to continue to grow. And I know that's not
Yeah.
the answer people want, especially when you're going to be taking a pay cut and it's a forced pay cut that is actually nothing
Yeah.
to do with your business and is outside your control. But I would like to highlight an interesting thing that I thought about today. You and I both think back to the COVID days, and we've talked about it. We talk about them being the glory days of reselling, right? Best
Yes.
it's ever been.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I started in there, so that's the best. Like, I don't have anything else, but
so in 3 years' time again, we're going to look back at this point right now and say this is the glory day of reselling, because it always is better in the past than what we think it is in the present. So if we just view today as being the glory day and accept that like this right now is the easiest it's going to be and the most profitable it's going to be and the easiest it's going to be to sell and appreciate it, then it makes navigating the changes in the landscape much easier.
I have a question about pivoting from. I agree with what you just said, but I have a question about what you said before that. When you were like, you stopped picking up certain items and now you're focusing on things that sell within, is it then just easier to niche down into domestic sales to actually follow the trends? Because these are trends you can see, these are
Correct.
trends you see around you in town, they're trends you. How do you stay on top of what's trending? Like, I know, I guess car car parts are a bit easier because these are the cars that are being released, right? These are the
Yeah.
cars that have been
Yeah,
voted the top cars. These are the car sales I can go look at. It seems to me that fashion trends are a lot quicker come and go. Um, they
definitely.
ever change, so they change so quickly. So how do you keep on top of
It's a good
that?
question. So
Mhm.
I think partly why fashion and stuff just changes so frequently at the moment is that, in my opinion, there's a bit of like a death of monoculture in society. So back when we were young, we didn't have streaming services. So in Australia, you had one of four TV channels to watch. So
Mhm.
pretty much everyone at school was always watching the same thing. So we
Yes.
all dressed the same way because
Yes.
that's what fashion was, because we didn't have Netflix, we didn't have Amazon, we didn't have Hulu and all the other ones where you could be watching something that I didn't even know existed. And your fashion comes from what you're consuming, the content that you're seeing. And therefore, everything's so rapid cycling, because then you recommend to me a TV show from a different streaming platform. And I go over there and I'm like, oh, I identify with these people. And you take on some traits from that, because obviously certain platforms have different things on them. So you can kind of source really broadly nowadays for clothing,
Yeah.
because people watch different things. Like people might go on a like a reality TV binge, but you might go back seasons to start at the start. And if there's got a big enough back catalog, you might see people wearing different things that you're like, oh, this, yes, let's rock that. Let's do that. Um, what I do though is I go into discount outlets when we're interstate and I see what brands are moving into those discount outlets, because it's usually a good sign that the brand's not doing so well.
Definitely.
And then maybe I would consider lowering the price on those brands, or maybe even consider not picking them up. So that's kind of how I manage the brand selection point. But fashion wise, I just go for gold.
That's fascinating. I never thought about that because in South Africa it was the same. You basically had four channels. And
Mhm,
in South Africa, actually, because we have 11 official languages, there were four channels and they were mostly like four different languages. So you had your Afrikaans channel, which
mhm.
had like the news in Afrikaans and the shows in Afrikaans. And you had the English channel that had the shows in English. And then you had like your Xhosa channel and your Zulu channel. So basically, if you were Afrikaans speaking, you'll just watch the one channel.
For sure.
And then if you could speak English, you'd watch the other one as well. But that's fascinating. So let me ask you, do you focus, would you say most of your focus is on brand, or does brand matter less when it comes to style of what's on trend?
Both, to be honest. So I will pick up certain things that aren't branded just because I know that I've been selling. So it's based on
Mhm.
my sales data, things that are of that. And then I will keyword it in a way that I know that it will pop up in the search for that specific item. And it can be even unbranded as long as it's keyworded right, because it will still move. But there are just certain brands that like do career wear or capsule wardrobes or ethical, sustainable, um, whatever's on trend, like vegan brands, etc., that will definitely sell as they move through.
Because some brands even have bad selling items, but also some brands, even if the brand is hot right now, what that brand was selling 20 years ago still might not sell because the style is bad,
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
And then some
definitely.
styles doesn't even need to be a good brand. Because I've seen, like H&M. H&M you would mostly see as like a mall brand, right? You're not going to get massive bucks for it. But then H&M has collabs with other people.
Yes.
And one particular dress I really wanted, I had to pay like 80 quid for it just
Yeah.
because that style at that time was so popular. And you'd think to yourself, I wouldn't necessarily pick up H&M. I don't know anything about clothing, guys. I'm just talking about what I wear. But like going on Vinted and stuff, H&M doesn't sell for that much. But then you get these particular ones, which are
Yeah.
just because of style, I guess.
It's the same as Uniqlo. So Uniqlo as a brand, like brand new sells for $15. It's a
Mm.
terrible brand, but they do collabs and some of those collabs go for above what they were brand new at tags because they're
Yeah.
just so desirable. There's nuances like that within every brand, but then there's some brands that for whatever reason they'll just be a specific cut. So we've got um a very like cheap brand here called Anko. It's from Kmart and they just happened to do this denim trench coat that someone somewhere made viral on TikTok and it sells like nobody's business and it was cheap when it was purchased and they sell
Mhm.
so well now. It's ridiculous. You would have been able to pick it up for $1 on the discount rack.
Do you think as society as a whole, with this culture of like new wardrobe every season, you got to be on trend, we buy and we return, do you think we lean more towards brand or style? Because it's
I
fast fashion almost and people change their clothes so often, I would think that style would be more important because brand, historically, people invested in brand because of quality and it lasts longer. But if your
yeah.
main focus now is to be on trend, you don't
Mm.
care if it still lasts next year.
I don't think that brand is important apart from there are some brands that fit certain style categories that people choose.
Mm,
So like Gorman, which is a brand that you won't know as an Australian-based brand, pretty much anything. It's got a cult following, but there is a specific style to their dresses that people wear, so it's on trend for that. But um, I think the style component now, apart from the capsule wardrobe career wear sort of stuff, the minimalist stuff, is more important. Because like I was at the markets last night, running a market store, and you just watch people go past, and no one looks uniform these days. So
mhm.
I feel like as you move and you change and you move through groups, that's why you're changing your wardrobe so frequently because you're around different people and you start taking on what they're watching, what they're consuming,
Yeah.
because that's what you talk about, and therefore you start dressing similarly. It's like when couples end up dressing the same as each other and they look like they could almost be brother and sister because they've just picked up so many traits of each other.
Yeah. I'm reading this book. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And
Oh,
yeah, it's really good. But one of the things that he mentions in there is how much as a culture we've shifted our perspective of what wealth and rich look like,
mm,
where now the hustle, being busy, even when you look at them advertising luxury cars and luxury advertisements, it's no longer people on the beach having cocktails, people relaxing at the polo club. It's business guys running multi-million business. It's a late night meeting you drive to in your fancy car. It's a event you go to. Like our perception of what luxury is has changed from luxury is free time, being able
mhm.
to afford the nice things while having the free time. And now our perception is that it's working 15, 16-hour days and driving there in your luxury car. And I thought that was actually such a bang on explanation of the shift that's happened in our culture.
It's the consumerism.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you say that because like you could just drive a Yaris just for a car and probably be equally as happy and not have to drive to your late night meeting and get after it and burn the midnight oil. There's a lot of like evidence to say our grandparents had it right, where they just want to be like happy and connected with people around them. That's it. They didn't want to rush off to late night meetings and miss time with their kids or any of those sorts of things.
I just think it's fascinating that
Mm.
we see luxury and brands to portray this image of being busy. So we want to
Yeah.
have the bag and the Armani clothes and the glasses because then we'll look like someone who's always busy and is important at work. Where it used to be, you want to have the nice car and the luxury clothes so you look like someone who gets to lounge about all the time. You know?
Yeah, totally. It just shows that I think part of it is that you need to be busy to be able to afford it. One, because things here are just so
Yeah.
ridiculously expensive. So it is like that image of someone that is running around and getting after it to be able to afford it because it is now not just achievable by the average person. But there are cultures like in South America where they just go to work to be able to afford, like they'll go do their job to be able to afford whatever it is that they want to purchase for that day to get through the day. And then they'll just go dancing all night and enjoy their
Yeah.
lives. And what's better, going and literally living your life every day after a couple hours of just hustling to get enough money for the day and to be able to go out dancing, or running to a midnight meeting in your luxury car that just drives you there and you don't get to enjoy it.
But I think that's the thing, though. We've been sold the idea that that is enjoying it.
Totally. I agree with you. Yeah.
And I think it's a glorification of busyness. Like we've
Mhm.
been told success is busyness. And you see it everywhere,
It's
and
normalized.
particularly part of the issue is that we've lost the ability to be bored. Um, the book talks about how people born after the 2000s don't know what it is to be bored because you just pick up your phone, you turn on the TV, you put on the computer. You don't actually sit in your boredom. And in your boredom is where you sit with your thoughts and your minds and you question
Mhm.
life and you question yourself and so I've made a point of no, I don't watch reels or doom scroll at all anymore. I also don't carry my phone from room to room anymore. I leave my phone and I've put the sound back on so if it rings, I'll go answer it like a home phone. And I don't go on my phone when I sit and wait in a queue. I don't go on my phone when I wait for my kid to come out of school. I've been sitting in myself and just like watching the world around me, thinking about things. And the first 3 or 4 days, my head was so loud. So, like,
Yeah.
the thoughts didn't end, and it was so loud, and I at one point, I just wanted to doom scroll to be quiet because I was like, "This is so loud." But then all of a sudden, after, like, the 3rd or the 4th day, you remember things. You start walking and you see something and it triggers a memory from way back when that you didn't even remember you ever had
Yeah.
because you're now allowing your mind to just be your mind and not be numbed. And I think there's a place for entertainment. And I think I texted you this, what I got from that book. One of the biggest things I got from that book, because I was trying to explain to Martin what it was, is there's going to be two types of people in this world, right? There's going to be those of us who learn and progress, and then there's going to be those who choose to just be entertained. And
Totally.
I chose to be entertained, but the problem with that is you don't actually progress.
I love this so much because I'm
Yeah.
such a big fan of being bored or not having stimulus when you're doing a task.
Yeah.
So I would often like list with something playing like music or something
Mhm.
like that, or a podcast. And you're ultimately just not completely focused on the task. But also
Mhm.
then your mind can't wander and go places. So I'm
Yes.
really curious, have you found like a spike in creativity through allowing yourself to be bored? Because my mind just explodes with ideas when I give it the space to be quiet.
I found a lot of frustration in the things I think about and not being able to solve it, and then I just want to avoid it. But have forcing yourself to sit in it and find ways to solve it and
Mhm.
find ways to analyze it um, becomes addictive and exciting. The
That's
amount of things I've learned over the last week and a half um, by not just picking up my phone and Googling something, just actually thinking about it, sitting, thinking, and then Googling not the solution, but specific things like how would
yeah.
I, what I like to think of it like data collecting instead of finding the answer. So I want to
Mm.
collect the data and then make a decision. But it's it's fascinating what I forgot my brain can do.
Yeah,
And it's
totally.
fun. Like it's loud sometimes and sometimes you just want to put the TV on so you stop thinking about things. But it's also amazing having imagination come back and having curiosity about yourself where now you look at things and you're curious about it. Why is that like that? What if that was like that? But what, how do I make that like that? Why do I, things you don't think about when you're staring at a screen in your free time because you're not thinking, you're consuming.
For
And
sure.
yeah, and that comes back to what we were talking about, the consumerism as well and how it changes our perspective.
Yeah, it also links back to the idea of, like, being present. That is the main
Mm,
reason why I turned off international posts, because if I'm present, I can
mm,
actually do things better. If I'm
yeah,
scrolling or listening to something else, I'm not fully present in the moment, and therefore I'm not either achieving the best outcome, or even this conversation wouldn't be
yeah,
what it is if one of us was partially distracted.
yeah.
Mm.
Last night I slipped up and I found myself scrolling through Instagram. I wasn't watching Reels, I was just going to Instagram. And immediately, I caught myself after maybe like 40 minutes and I subconsciously did it. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then being conscious of the fact that I've done it, seeing how different my thoughts were for the 2, 3, 4 hours after that compared to now what I've experienced, it was quite scary.
Mm. Yeah. It is interesting, isn't it? And you're
Mm.
not able to create, like, those longer term memories, let
Yeah.
alone be able to recall things. So, you I would find if I was heavy scrolling, I would go to bed, my mind would just go trying to, like, process
Yeah.
everything that it was getting through, that I'd seen and witnessed, and it's not even important things. Like, half the time it was just, like, puppy videos and just things that made me laugh, and not necessarily even, like, business related stuff or things that I'm actually interested in. But you still have to be able to process and digest them. So I fall asleep a lot easier without having scrolled or consumed a lot of content. We've never owned a TV in this house, so that's not something that's ever been a factor, but it was always the issue from the phone.
I noticed very quickly how most of the thoughts and the feelings after that were of self-doubt
That's
or
interesting.
negativity towards myself or my situation. And that I guess I could link back to the comparison of the view I'm having of other people when on the internet, right? And
Well,
it actually led to trying to fall asleep being like proper sad. And I
oh,
was like,
wow.
"What's wrong with you? You've been fine." And now look at you. And I think that was it was I didn't realize how quick it changes. And I guess being out of it for a while, even just the 5, 6 days I've been doing it, and then seeing how quickly it just hit me again. And I also want to say that a lot of it could be to do with what the algorithm was feeding me that day. Like, it's different. The things you choose to consume is different. I fell into like doom scrolling, so that's different. But
Yeah.
it was just fascinating. I was actually quite disappointed with myself.
You've got to give yourself some grace. It's hard to
Yeah.
unwind a
Yeah.
decade worth of habits.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it's not something you can do overnight.
Mm,
I'm, like, months down the road and I still find myself reaching in moments of stillness, especially if, like, I'm waiting for an appointment or something like that and I have nothing to do. That's my number one, like, kinda pain point.
mm,
But I really enjoy looking around, especially in a waiting room or in a food court or in a line at, like, the post office or something, and just seeing everyone like this,
mm.
because we're not meant to be like that. Like, you lose everything around you.
That's funny because Martin said that the other day. He went to go get a takeaway, I think, and he said he walked out to stand outside and wait for the food with all the other people who were waiting for food. And he didn't pick up his phone because the first thing he noticed was that everyone was on their phones. And then he felt like he didn't want to. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to, like, he didn't want to do it. And he said he just stood there because he was like, what is this? Like, what is
Yeah,
happening? So, um, that was interesting as well. I think a lot of us feel the effects of overconsumption, and overstimulation, and we're not really sure what it is or what's causing it. And it's also very hard when it's the norm.
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that there is, like, content that I can consume that is good for me, I guess is the best way to
Yeah.
content that I find that's, like, real connection, like, real story, not trying to sell me something, not trying to
Yeah.
promote something, not trying to instill fear in me, like, content that just has that genuine, like, feel to it, like, the person is just who they are. I like that sort of stuff, that raw stuff, because I don't go to like, away from it going, "Oh, I lack something," or "I should be doing this. I'm not exercising enough. I'm gonna die at 35," like, or any of those sorts of things. It's you can just be, and I like that. It's like
Yeah.
when we talked before this, yeah, I get so much more out of, like,
Yeah.
conversation with you, about those things, and it's almost that raw content is almost like
Mhm.
that.
I think that's fascinating. Or like, it's a difference between the content you choose to consume
Mm.
and content that's being chosen for you to
Yeah.
consume, right?
Mhm.
That content you're talking about is you made a conscious choice to watch that. Where
Totally.
if you're um, watching a TV show or you're on Instagram Reels or TikTok Reels, something else is deciding for you what you're going to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because on Instagram Reels, they decide what comes up next. On TikTok, they decide what comes up next. Watching a series on TV, the writers decide what you're going to witness next, right? We're making a conscious decision to say, I want to read this book, or I want to watch this podcast, I want to watch this documentary, I want to watch that. The difference, the effect of choosing the content versus being fed the content.
You nailed that spot on, because the
Mm.
algorithm is built to show you what it thinks will allow you to stay on the platform and keep scrolling,
Yeah.
because that's where they make their money, is through their
Yeah.
ads that pop up in between. So the longer they can keep you on there, the more money they will give you. So they've learnt your behaviors. And in the same breath, if you were to go on there and not do that and intentionally
Mhm.
reset your algorithm to show you the stuff that you go and search for, it
Mhm.
goes, well, that's what you're going to stay on here for. That's why when you follow someone new, their stuff just appears at the front, because that's the newest point of where it goes, oh, you want to see more of this.
Mhm. I'm not
It's
sure
interesting.
how we swerved so far away from
I have no
international
idea.
shipping, but here we are, guys. Um, I think what the link was, the how to keep up with the trends, and then just the realization sometimes that we don't even have control over the trends. Like, it used to be fashion houses bring out collections and it was a hit or a miss, but the people decided what
Yeah.
the trends was, what they liked, and now it seems that it's just the content that's consumed the most decides what the trend is. Like, some of the things are just ugly, and I don't understand how as a human race we decided, yes, that's it. I don't get it. Like, how were
I
we
don't
brainwashed into thinking, yes, that's
I'm not sure. I can't answer that one. I don't understand fashion whatsoever. I might sell the pieces, but I don't get it.
that's about it.
No. I just think that fashion is a really wide scope now comparatively
Yeah.
to what it used to be. And it will only continue to get wider the more
Mhm.
access to content and information that we have.
Yeah.
And the speed in which this stuff is like developing is crazy. By the time, like, 10 years from now is going to be the equivalent of like 30 years
Mhm.
prior, in terms of how fast things move. And therefore, fashion will move that fast, and
Mhm.
trends will move that fast, and TV shows will move that fast. Eventually, you'll find companies that hang out in the S&P 500 for only a couple of years rather than for decades like they previously
Yeah.
have done, because technology is going to move that fast that we're unfortunately going to see rise and falls of huge companies very fast.
I think that diversity and ever changing is one of the reasons why you're able to claw back those sales domestically. Because if the domestic trends were all still universal the way they were 20, 30 decades ago, that would be harder. But because it's so diverse and everyone's on their own trend and the styles can vary so much, even just between one suburb to the next,
For
that
sure.
means that we can claw back. Because within our own culture, we now have subculture more than we used to. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like within that, there's no like need to be scared. Like
Mm.
eh, the fact that you're able to like be your unique self, be able
Mm.
to source uniquely what you think is suitable for people, there's going to be a whole subgroup of people like yourself that, or the products that at least you have access to.
Yeah.
There's a whole subculture that will want those products.
Fascinating.
This went way off topic.
I know, but I think it's good though. I think it's part of the reason why what we do works, and it's part of the
Mm,
reason why how we get to make these decisions is
for sure.
you have to make changes to make a change. Like if you just decided I'm switching off international shipping and that's it, and eBay will just have to eventually learn to give me more sales, that's going to get you nowhere. So it's a process. If you want to make a change, you have to change and then you have to make different decisions.
Mm.
And I think that was just what the discussion was, like how we get to different decisions. And I hope people got some value from it, or maybe you just like to listen to our ramblings while you work and think, thank goodness my mind does not work like this. And that's fine too. Also, Pine Gap. Google it.
Well, if they made it past the first 10 minutes, they're in for a real treat.
I know.
First 10 minutes of Pine Gap.
Have a great day, guys. We'll see you
Thanks
on the
for
next
joining.
one.
Bye.
Bye.